Hello, everyone. This is the meeting of the Racial Profiling Ad Hoc. I want to thank Lieutenant Hubbard for joining us, along with Deacon Lyles. Commissioner Acosta has had an emergency. He's given me some feedback for our discussion this evening, and Chair Peterson is running a little late, so she will join us as soon as she can. Just want to check in with you, Lieutenant Hubbard and Deacon Lyles. How's everything going? Are you good?
It's all good.
Okay.
Excellent.
Uh, Excellent. Deacon Lyles?
Oh, I'm excellent. Fine.
Oh, this is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and air the content of the feedback from Commissioner Acosta. I'm going to just go ahead and read it so I don't get get sidetracked. So his comments are, I do think that in the cultural accountability statement, maybe like in the last line, we should say something forcefully that clearly states that because of this history, anyone that violates this policy will be held accountable and disciplined by the levers in place to do so. And then he said also in the training outline, there should be a section on discipline. I don't want the documents to be too flowery and idealistic without forcefully calling out that because of this history, there's a microscope and a heavy hand on the adherence of this policy. And then he said, I just keep thinking about Deacon Lyles and him always going back to discipline. Those were my thoughts for tonight, and I'll email them to the group. Appreciate you. So I think that we have a little bit of work to do, but I know that we as a group have not discussed the preamble, which was recently added. Now that was initially as a request of Commissioner Riles to kind of set up an introduction to the policy. And then Darlene Flynn took a wonderful pen to that thought and design the preamble. I think unless Lieutenant Hubbard, you think we should do something different, I think it makes sense for us to go through that, make sure that we're all in agreement or offer up edits, because then that will be the last piece of the cultural accountability statement.
No objection for me.
Okay, and Deacon Lyles?
I concur. It's fine.
Wonderful. So would you mind, Lieutenant Hubbard, reading it out loud, hopefully for anyone who has joined us from the community?
Certainly. All right. So this is the preamble. Knowing the history from which modern institutions evolved and is useful for understanding current conditions related to social constructs put in place long before any current actors arrived on the scene. It provides a necessary connection with the when, where, and how certain aspects of the Oakland Police Department's present day activity that may not exactly repeat the past still serve as echoes that perpetuate embedded harm. These insights can strengthen our resolve to rid current systems of the residual tinges of the past that hold us back from the just and peaceful society we desire.
Thank you for reading that aloud. On its face, I thought it was profound. Deacon, do you have any edits, any questions, any challenges?
No, I do not.
Wow, wonderful. So now with that, since we are all in agreement, can we take a look at the very end of the accountability statement and try to identify a sentence that basically speaks to both, I believe, Deacon Lyles and Commissioner Acosta's thoughts and feelings, that there be a, kind of a no tolerance, but that it's deeper than that. Given this history, anyone that violates it will will be held to the highest account up to termination or something like that. I don't want to act like I've got the best wording, but
Okay, so this would be the end. Yeah. Trying to get my screen here right.
Can you make it larger?
oh, and welcome, Chair Peterson.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So what we just recently did was to read through the preamble, and we've all agreed, unless you have an issue, that we really like it as it stands. And then I read aloud Commissioner Acosta's commentary. He had to cancel at the last minute. And basically that was about having a powerful last sentence on the cultural accountability statement that basically says that given our history, anyone that violates this policy, will be held to account up to and including termination or something like that.
Sure.
So now what we're
Yes.
trying to figure out is this last sentence. And unfortunately, the font is so small, Lieutenant Hubbard, I can't read if you are writing, if you are making any edits.
Sorry, I'm not. I'm trying to make it bigger.
Oh, okay.
It's yeah, it let me pull up the other document that I have. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not typing anything. I'm just thinking through this and how it could be worded.
What is the last sentence you're trying to word?
It's just, go ahead,
Yeah,
Lieutenant.
no, you got it. Just after
Deputy, I'm sorry, I just demoted you, Deputy Chief.
after 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 the last paragraph here, the cultural accountability statement, we want to put something in here about how one will be disciplined if they do not adhere to this policy.
Why not just violations to this policy by members of Oakland Police Department?
Will be held to the,
Could lead to discipline up to and including termination.
I think that's the standard line, and the standard line
Yes.
should go in right there so they know that this is serious. That's the more concise it is, the better.
Yeah,
Doesn't have to be
violations
long.
of this policy could lead to discipline up to and
Including
including
termination.
termination.
Man, that's it. That's it.
Okay, I will add that.
okay, can you read it one more time, please?
Violations of this policy could lead to discipline up to termination.
Up
Yeah, that's
to,
real
To and
clear.
And-
including.
including,
Up
to-
to
up
and
to,
and including.
and including
got it.
termination.
Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. If there are members from the public that want to drop a comment in the chat, but I think that that definitely puts a fine point on the end, that there is going to be accountability. Now, with that, if we all feel comfortable with that, then perhaps we could begin to turn our attention to this draft preliminary training document. We were gonna, I was gonna give the deputy chief a little bit longer, and I think he will have a little bit longer, but he thought that it might be a good idea to have everybody take a look, because training documents are not the same as policy documents, and that maybe we might have some thoughts that he can incorporate between now and our next meeting. And if we haven't had a chance to review, because I know we sent a bunch out on Wednesday, on Monday, then we can take some time. And Lieutenant Hubbard, maybe you can paraphrase what the general, what the general differences are between training documents, training bulletins, and policy.
Yeah, sure. Excuse me. The good thing about training documents that are attached to policy is that we have a lot of flexibility in what we want to make it. So for example, I'll just skip down here. We can go back. So for section 1, and this is a very rough draft. So and this is only on the policy, and it was somewhat of a quick job. So I know this has to be developed further. So let's just take the historical context section and the cultural accountability. We can really make this even a 1-day class just on this section alone. I don't know if you all listened to the podcast, the 1619 Project, and read the book, but I was thinking, man, we can do a whole.
Oh, I'm impressed with you there, dropping that. Yeah.
We can do a whole class just on that, and that can handle the first section of the policy to include the cultural accountability statement. And this is again where we can be as creative as we want, and that's what I love most about creating these training documents, is that we can really get into the weeds of things.
Well,
Yeah.
that sounds very impressive. Let me ask you this. When we look at training documents and how they correlate to actual in-class sessions, generally, how long is something like the M19 policy? How, is that over a week or over 2 days or 1 day? And I realize you can make them whatever, but obviously we don't want it to be so long that it loses the attention of OPD or of officers.
Sure. For most of our policy publications and training, a lot of it is just done in lineup. So it would be
Wow.
right before officers hit the street, which would be 30 minutes to an hour long. And I certainly don't want to do that with this policy.
No.
So again, we can make it as long as we want or as short as we want. And I appreciate the concern for operations and pulling people off the street. And we might not want to do that, but we can also do it in a modular fashion where we do like 4 blocks. So it doesn't complete the training all at once. People can sit on it, digest it a little bit, and then we can have it, different modules that stack up on it.
So when you talk about the modules and the blocks, these are still done person to person, face to face, right? They're not like video or whatever.
No, it's best to
Okay.
be in the classroom together.
Okay, no, I agree. And you have been a training officer for how long?
Well over a decade of my career.
Okay, so I would definitely think that we would tend, I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but we would tend to take your subject matter expertise and you recommend what it is that how we approach it. I think I like the modular because like you said, just to kind of get through the preamble and state the background and the history is pretty impressive, and especially for officers that may not have this history. Young people really, for the most part, won't have this history, and some elders won't have this history. So to basically focus energy on the setup, I always say start out the way you want to end up. If people can really understand the purpose of the preamble and the cultural accountability statement, the rest should come easier. That's just my non-subject matter expertise suggestion.
No,
And
yeah,
I cannot see hands raised. So if you guys have a raised hand, just jump out there. I'm sorry, Deputy.
I was agreeing with you. Well said.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Deacon Lyles,
Yes, ma'am.
any thoughts on modular, how many hours, given your experience in training and all, do you think that this policy should take?
I was thinking about that, and this is an in-depth policy. Ideally, it would be maybe a 2-day training where people are taken off the street, and the department stands down. I don't know if you remember. If I can use this as an example, and I'll try to be concise. You remember when the tail hook scandal hit the Navy and the Naval Academy?
Tailhook was the Air Force, wasn't it?
Air Force. Was it the Air Force or was it the? Okay.
Anyway, but it hit the
Yeah.
military.
Well, I know they were landing on aircraft carriers, so it could have been Air Force. All right, it was Air Force. And anyway, when that tailhook scandal hit, because it was serious and they wanted to end this scourge of sexism and sexual harassment, they stood down for a day. And they did that training. And they don't, the military doesn't stand down often. And so that particular information that was being taught had reached that level of importance and gravity. I think the same goes for this. I actually believe that this is foundational to us breaking the cycle. We can't get this through and do it right, where everybody hears it. Now, I don't expect everybody to accept it or agree with it, but you can't do discipline unless they've been trained.
That's right.
And everybody has been trained. So
I agree.
so ideally,
and it has to be
I would say,
mandatory.
this is going to cost the city of Oakland, and it should cost the city of Oakland. They want to break this thing.
Right.
So
And it's been
that's
costing the city of Oakland, right?
Say it again.
Because I said that it's been costing the city of Oakland because
Precisely.
it hasn't been dealt with.
Precisely.
So I would absolutely agree with a 2-day training. What about yourself, DC?
No objection for me. I definitely need the chief approval on that and just logistically how that's gonna work. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Let me tell you why quickly, let me tell you why as you said, you didn't want to do that, that squad meeting training. 85% of people not paying attention. They're already on the street thinking about what they got to do, trying to get ready to prepare to go out and all of that. And so who they meet first, where they gonna get their first cup of coffee, who they supposed to rendezvous with, all of that's they're not ready for training. This has to be clear the decks. We want to break the cycle of OPD officers, not being the kind of integrity and using the kind of integrity that it should be. And I'm trying to pick words here.
Yeah, no, correct. And it needs to be mandatory for all sworn and unsworn
Got
officers. Everybody needs to be getting the same information.
got to be mandatory. If I'm the chief of police coming in like this, I would want to do this. I
Yep.
would want to champion this. Why? Because I got to, how do I tell the organization, new day, new direction? This is not the same old wine poured into old, new wine poured into
New
old
wine into old, yeah.
Right.
wine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we're doing something totally different. We have a different expectation, and don't talk to me about money because we're spending this money. And if
Right.
this is an investment, and if we invest right, maybe people will tell the truth on reports. Maybe they won't do some of the things that they got, that's cost us a great deal of general funds.
Right. So DC, the question around the chief, I'm wondering if before you finish the training document, if it makes sense to go ahead and share with him, what we have right now, which is the entire cultural accountability statement. We've all agreed to it, and the updates to M19. Do you think it makes sense to sit with him, review it with him, have him ask you whatever questions, and get a sense of his willingness to own this, to make this one of his things? Or do you think it needs to be fully baked with the training document as well before delivering it to him?
No, I like option one. Knowing he does not like to be surprised. I've only known him for a month now, but I've learned that very quickly. So I think if we preemptively provide him these documents, allow him to review it, offer insight before we finalize it, I think that would be beneficial.
Okay, and I agree with you. And so, I'm not big standing on ceremony. Do you think that it should come from the chair of racial profiling ad hoc, the
Yes.
chair of the commission, or do you think it should come?
Yeah.
Deacon said yes.
Yeah. I have my hand up, but I remember you said you can't see hands.
I can't see it. Yes.
I don't think this is not the message that Deputy Chief Hubbard carries. This is the message that Chair Emeritus and Chair Marsha Peterson and the community carries.
Okay.
That's
You
yeah,
know-
and they have to get ready for that. This is the resistance, not
Right.
from, of course, working with DC Hubbard, but
Sure.
we are finding throughout the city is that they want to keep playing the same hand.
Status quo.
Yeah,
Yep.
they do not want to fully include community principles of civilian oversight in any of
Okay.
their discussions.
Well,
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I just, wanted to clarify who should be delivering it. And this will be delivered tomorrow. I will, Chair Peterson, do you have your meeting with the chief yet? Is it scheduled?
He and I talked the other day, and his staff person is supposed to be setting that up. But it doesn't matter, Regina. I will call him and ask him when can we meet with him on this matter? And he's very good at taking my calls.
and even
Well,
if
that
it's
in
a
and of
Zoom,
itself is great.
even if it's a Zoom call, in
Yeah.
30 minutes, then
Yeah.
and you guys know how to pitch this, but this is the flag that he should be carrying.
Yeah. No,
Why he's here.
that totally makes sense. And what I was hoping for, I would much rather do a face-to-face. I really appreciated our meetings with Chief Armstrong because you had total focus. Sometimes he might have to take a call or whatever, but it wasn't people handing him stuff or him having to, review anything else. So
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
In regards to that, this resistance march that you spoke of, I've heard you speak of a couple of times. Is that emanating from the chief's office also?
Let's just say this much. We're on two different tracks.
Okay.
We have a track that is put up like we have DC Hubbard, who is working with us, but we have other entities within the city who don't want to work with us, who don't want to hear from us. And so we're not in the inner circle of communication in NSA at all. We are fighting to still get there, believe it or not, despite what the judge ordered. So there is, yes, definite resistance still occurring, even though it is civilian oversight that is supposed to be the result of us getting out of NSA. It makes no sense.
But to Chair Peterson's commentary and your question, I don't think this is direct from Chief Mitchell. He is responsive to the chair. He's been responsive to a few things that I've asked for. So, I believe that the opportunity exists, but whether or not he can carry this alone, given some of the powers that be who are not in support of how the commission has been moving, may not be the end all be all, but if he wanted it to, he could, draw a line in the sand and say, this is important. I like the way this is being done, and we are going to make commitments to ensure that every officer, sworn and unsworn, gets this training.
I can't say that I know what the chief is thinking one way or the other, but I certainly would be most willing to meet with him and present this as an integral part of how the commission is moving.
Yep. So, your meeting is going to be scheduled?
No, Regina, forget about my weekly meeting with him. I want to set up a meeting for this purpose.
Well, that's fine. It could be the subject of your weekly meeting is all I'm saying. I don't want us to have to wait too much longer to get feedback from him.
Right. That's what I'm also saying. So whether or not they have found the space for this weekly meeting, I have been able to reach him on a. So I want to reach out to him and say that we have an important matter to discuss with you regarding racial profiling, which is a large part of what we're supposed to be looking into as the commission. So,
well, and it's the one task that is the most vulnerable, the one that, we may be saying, well, the city may be saying we are in total alignment, but task 45, which is disparity, not just in discipline, but deals with all of the racial kinds of, impacts. This is squarely fitting that. So,
sure.
So you tell me, Chair, offline when we're going to meet, and I will be there.
Okay. Of
Okay.
course. Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And
Go
I
ahead.
didn't mean to exclude DC Hubbard. I would hope that the three of you are there, because if I'm the chief of police, I'm looking in his eyes to
And
see
want to
if
know, is
Marcia
he in
That's
and
a real good point.
Regina is telling the truth. Is that how it went
Right.
down? I'm doing the
Right.
body language with that, and if he starts doing this, I know I'm in trouble.
Deacon Lyles, you are so on target so much of the time. I feel more comfortable with you being on our team, period. There definitely was not an inference of any disrespect or seclusion of DC, but you're right. He should be right there in that room with
Oh,
us.
yeah.
DC, you good with that?
I am.
Okay. So, if you, so Chair, if you, can email DC and myself so that we can design a couple of meetings to offer,
Okay.
or, part of me feels like we probably ought to know when when your weekly meeting is, and then just jump on that one. So it's not like it's a new or different meeting.
Right. Well, we'll
But
see
then
if all of
making,
that is going to be available to us immediately, because I see this as an emerging meeting separate and above of the list of things that I already have to discuss with him. I called him about a couple of things on Monday
okay,
and we talked. And that's when he said, well, he had to get with his person to schedule the weekly meetings. But I will be on the phone. No problem. Let's keep going. We're
okay,
going to get this meeting going.
okay.
That's
All right,
underway.
so does it then sound like I can send the documents tomorrow referencing that we are looking forward to a meeting with the three of us? Or the
With the
four of
four of
us?
us.
Yeah, four of,
Mhm. Yeah.
because it will take a minute for him to review them and digest them. I wouldn't want to walk into the meeting trying to have the conversation and him not have a chance to review. So yeah, so I'll take that action tomorrow and will
You're
actually
sending him this document in its draft form. Is that what you're saying?
correct, because
Okay.
we actually think it's pretty final
Uh-huh.
unless the chief differs or it goes up the line and the monitor has some problem, or it goes down the line to union and they have some problem. But this is what we are presenting.
Well, I will text him and just be on the lookout for that document, and then I'm still waiting to have a standard meeting set with him.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
And DC is, I realize that you do a whole bunch of things, but do you have some flexibility in your schedule? Or if the police chief says I can meet at this date and this time, then you can adjust as well. Is that correct?
I have flexibility.
Love
Okay.
it.
And Regina, when's your best time?
Oh, just not on Mondays. I'm pretty
Okay.
flexible any other day. Now, as I mentioned, when I used to meet with Chief Armstrong, it was Friday afternoon because it was toward the end of his day when usually you didn't have any extra explosions, you know? You might not
Well,
have
I
gotten
was
him.
meeting with Allison on Friday mornings just before there's something that happens at 8:30
Oh,
or
that's
8
the
or 9 o'clock. DC
Chiefs
Hubbard.
meeting, right?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
before. Yeah.
That's fine. Like I said, if we're going to be there in person, I'd hate to be fighting traffic, but you just tell me what it is and I'll be there.
Yeah, because Corelli and I met with Allison at least the first couple of times in person
Okay,
when
great.
he just became the interim. So we'll see how he wants to play it.
Okay, no problem. But I'll send it out tomorrow and then we'll see, how quickly he's able to respond and whether or not, posing Friday morning or afternoon meetings would work for him.
Okay.
Now, kind of getting back to the training document, we've kind of gone around the road to say probably 2 days, probably modules. And I don't want to hold people longer than we need to. This may or may not mean that we want to recommend what the other modules are, or Lieutenant Hubbard, if you want some time, excuse me, more time. I really just appreciate you letting us take a look at it, knowing that it's unfinished and just kind of, in the beginning stages.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And again, this is a simple lesson plan that just covers the policy. The other thing that I would need help developing and is learning outcomes. I do definitely want to have a test to go with this, but also
Yes.
some type of learning activities that they can do as groups. That's one thing I need probably help developing also. I was hoping for Darlene Flynn's help for that, or even Stanford. If they can put their eyes on this, that would be even better.
Yes, and I was planning to send this to, excuse me, to Dr. Eberhard. Just wanted to, but maybe it's ready. It's time to prep her with these documents and say we're working on the training tool. How much do you need done in order to review that, given this information? Is that kind of what we think that I should be saying, or do you have some different messaging, DC?
Yeah, I think for the sake of time, I don't necessarily need them to overturn everything in the lesson plan. I think it's just sections that they can possibly help develop, such as learning activities. What is the best way for us to measure that that it's understood? Even the class survey, that would be great if they can help with that. Little things that they have definitely an expertise in.
Okay. Best way to develop to design the data.
Yeah. Instructional design, I think, is how that's titled. So learning activities, even the first section that we talked about, any ideas on how we can really dig deep into the history of racial profiling and make it interesting, even videos that they may have that I can show in class. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
If I may also, because it was mentioned, the independent monitoring team, when they did their virtual site visit last month, they did ask for a copy of the draft. I told them that it wasn't near complete, but now it is. So I'm hoping for permission to send that to them, and just so they can.
Oh,
I don't think they're going to have
interesting.
any objection over this, but I do want to send this to.
Why don't you let me send it?
Okay.
Again, obviously I have history working with the monitor, and I think that the messaging, not unlike what Deacon Lyles was suggesting, that probably makes sense all the way around. Is that all right with you, DC?
It is. That's great. Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. So all three of these emails, one to Chief Mitchell, one to Dr. Eberhard, and one to Mr. Warshaw. They will all go out tomorrow.
Okay. On behalf of the commission's ad hoc.
Absolutely. And you will be copied, Chair.
Okay.
So having said that, Deacon Lyles, do
Yes,
you
ma'am.
or the chair have any recommendations? You're always really good to talk about videos or stories or what have you. Do you have any suggestions for DC in terms of learning activities or structural design or any additional videos or books?
Well, another book, because, we did reference the 1619 project. I think they should also be reading the writer's book. But A People's History of the United States also brings into focus
Different perspective.
the Native American experience, the Mexican experience, all in the forming of the United States and the racism that has followed. So if we're giving them a bibliography of recommended reading, I think that should be on there.
DC, is that what we're doing?
I think we should, if we're not.
Well, the issue is then who buys the books and who gives them you know what I mean?
This is an investment in their own education and ability to constitutionally navigate the space. So
I get it. I'm just not sure that they're going to understand.
do you all have a library? Do you have books? What do you guys do over there in terms of outside the box exposure?
It's actually part of our wellness unit. That was one of my initiatives. I wanted to build a library, and we do. It's
Yeah,
still
the
growing.
resources.
Yeah, and I wanted to build a little cafe up there for issues just like this, to sit down and read together and talk about things. So there's money in wellness to do that if we do want to purchase books.
Okay, that sounds excellent. We also have a comment from the community. What about audiobooks they can listen to as they are on the move?
I don't think they can be doing that while they are
Yeah,
reading.
maybe a
No.
distraction.
No, they can't
Yeah.
do that.
They can't do that.
Okay, well, maybe they could have access to that, I don't know. All for it.
No, the
I'm
last
not
thing
sure how to,
we don't want to even imply that they, while on duty, they were studying
no,
something we want them to study. So that just
okay,
sets us up for being criticized. So
okay,
just
that's a
they
good
don't even
point.
mention it. Yeah.
That's a good point.
No.
Thank you very much. The suggestion is excellent, but I hope you understand they have to be totally focused so they can't be distracted by anything, no matter how
Right.
good.
Well, again, if you're thinking of exposing the officers to something more than just your standard training, but or even this becoming not, I shouldn't even say that. I should say this becoming more ingrained in their training. There should be time set aside or something for them to go to these wellness quiet spaces, and there'll be some reading or recordings that they can listen to or read. I mean, there has to be a restructuring of how they get information.
This is true,
And
but
the
the difference
information
is,
that they get.
this is true, but I think the difference is, I don't know how popular wellness is, in terms of people actually feeling like it's okay to go. DC, are there incentives for use of the wellness section, or does it just need to be they feel comfortable going?
It's growing in popularity. I actually wrote a proposal last year where I called it a wellness hour, where a few
Yeah.
hours per week in one shift, one can utilize the wellness unit. It's not just for exercise. It could just be for reading or meeting with their peers, and this would be a perfect opportunity for that.
Okay, that's great.
And some way of even, if you grab chapter, answer some questions and submit it. I mean, I just think that's a way of knowing that people are embracing and pursuing these other avenues of information and culture shifts.
I think that your suggestion makes really good sense. And similar, once we get it in the hands of other people, I had mentioned that I would be happy to go to roll calls. And I don't know if you can do that as well, Chair, or if Commissioner Acosta, just in terms of giving the face-to-face, here's what we've done, here's how we did it, the training's coming to you soon, do you have any questions? That kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. Yes.
Okay.
Because we if we want to make a change, we have to change the way things are done.
Yeah, and at this 5 minutes, until we have, I think, the chief sign off, generally that gives the permission to everyone to recognize that this is important, and so therefore people should fall in line. It's the falling in line that takes a lot of time.
Yeah, there's a beginning. There's always a start.
No, I understand. So with this, DC, do you want us to try and go forward and make any other suggestions around the module, or do you think you have enough to get started with the email that I'll send to Dr. Eberhard in order to get you some ideas back?
Yeah, I think I know where to go from here. I'm gonna make the edits that we talked about tonight. And yeah, again, the lesson plan was somewhat rushed, so I'm certainly gonna spend now all of my time just building on this. And yeah, it will be very in depth by the time we're done here. And then as I'm moving along, then I'll get the input from Darlene Flynn and Stanford and all of you, and
Yeah.
we'll have this done in no time.
I think that sounds really, really great. And you all know I don't like to meet just to meet. If there is anything else that we should be sharing with DC for him to move forward between now and our next meeting 2 weeks from now, let us share it. Otherwise, I would like to thank everybody for their time and for the work that we got through. It was still quite important. And then we will reclaim our time.
I'm good.
Excellent. Deacon Lyles?
Yeah, I'm good. I just got word that a dear friend, one of the best friends, just died about an hour ago. So
Oh
Oh,
no,
I got
Deacon,
to call the wife.
I
Who
am
was
so sorry.
that?
Um,
Somebody I know too.
Marcia, you probably know Joe Ramey, Oakland Tech, Joe Ramey, Melody Ramey. He was a year in front of me. Lived
No,
on 54th.
matriculating on, but we're getting a lot of that now. Very
I am
upsetting.
so very sorry, Deacon Lyles. It's amazing you would say that. I am sitting in the parking lot of Oakland Tech right now for an
Ah,
event.
Great
Um,
school.
But that, yes, absolutely. But that said, all the more reason to go ahead and adjourn this extraordinary meeting, this series of extraordinary meetings. And of course, we will be back here at same bat channel 2 Wednesdays from now.
God bless.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Chair
thank you
Emeritus,
so much. Thank you,
Thank you,
DC. Thank you,
everyone.
Deacon. Thank you,
Chair
Chair.
Emeritus,
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
Thank you,
Yes,
DC.
Wait,
I'm
wait a
sorry,
minute.
people can go, but I just wanted to acknowledge Mr. Bay joined today. So I'm not
Yes,
sure.
that's
hello,
Yeah.
yes,
wonderful.
hello, Ms. May.
We
Welcome.
didn't know.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining, Mr. Bay.
He's on mute.
Okay,
He's on
okay, so,
mute.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
okay. So bye-bye. Thank you.
Mhm.